In today's video, we're going to be taking a look here at our upcoming modeled guidance. We're even going to be showing you guys the Storm Prediction Center outlook for this upcoming Friday, day 2 tomorrow, where we have a major severe weather outbreak taking place. So we're going to be taking a look at all of those things throughout this video. But not only that, we also actually have more severe weather on the way after that event that I also want to go over with you guys. Again, I love for you guys to have the ability to kind of just mark dates down and be aware that those days might be something to look out for. So that way, when you see it on your calendar, whatever it may be, you go ahead and you look at the weather that day because you're reminded, and then you get to see. Because I think a lot of times, a lot of people are caught off guard and never even catch the news. A lot of people don't watch the news these days, you know what I mean? It's very popular to not do that these days, more than ever, I would say. So we get a lot of this vital information that kind of gets not seen enough. So I think it's a really good thing overall, and obviously I would highly recommend checking the Storm Prediction Center and the National Weather Service for those types of things. Certainly, definitely something you want to do in these types of life-threatening situations. Let's just move this towards this afternoon, kind of the day before this severe weather events takes place, and as you can see, the jet stream is doing this very vertical climb there over the Rockies, and this is indicating first off, we have a low here. This is just a very intense look, and we have quickly rising air here to the east of that low, which we talked about this yesterday if you missed that video. But this is just not what you want to see. This sinking air to the west, the rising air to the east in this very dramatic fashion. Not a good look whatsoever, and we see that already by the time we're reaching maybe the afternoon. We see things really lifting off here. This low is over Iowa. We have a cold front stretching underneath here, and then this warm front extending eastward through the Great Lakes into the northeast. And what all of this means is that we have the warm rising air with lots of humidity out to the east here. So this is kind of putting the building blocks in place. So that is allowing for this very conductive environment to take place. And then we have this cold air kind of hitting it from the side, just moving through. So this actually causes rotation, because if you imagine this warm air rising and this cold air moving through, it actually kind of creates this rotation around this. And that is exactly what causes this rotation in the atmosphere. And when we see this, that is what basically allows for a downdraft to cause that rotation to go from being horizontal up in the air to being pushed down, and actually causing tornadoes at the surface if that rotation can be pushed down by a downdraft, which that's why you need an intense storm to make that happen. An intense storm causes intense downdrafts, enough to push that rotation in a vertical column, which causes tornadoes. That is why we're always looking, and you might notice that I'm always looking for this rising air with that cold air hitting it from the side there. That is not what you want to see. The cold plus warm is really what causes those thunderstorms bad enough to cause the downdrafts to happen. That is what we're watching for here. And we can see this continues overnight. This threat continues into states like Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin. We're seeing these bad storms as this is right near kind of central eastern Wisconsin there, the low. At this point, I want to just take us back towards that evening. I don't think I pinpointed well enough where we expect this severe weather. It's going to be up and down the deep south through into Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas, maybe eastern Texas, eastern Kansas, eastern Oklahoma, and again, Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee. All of these areas we're watching very closely. Again, we're going to show you guys that Storm Prediction Center outlook at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. That'll give them more specifics. We see overnight, even we have these thunderstorms continuing. They're near the Appalachian Mountains at this point, all the way stretching down through Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia there. As we can see, for that next morning, we're going to get a secondary low to develop. I was hoping to see thunderstorms from this in Virginia, but with this low right here, what we end up seeing is pretty much there most likely will not be thunderstorms north of the Virginia-North Carolina line. If there's a low pressure center here, it's likely going to be underneath these areas where there's a stretching cold front, where we do have a marginal risk in place at this point for these areas. There is thunderstorms expected. North of here, we do have a pocket extending from this low here, and this is in another area expected to see potential thunderstorms there on Saturday the 1st. But these areas in between here are not really expected to see much. So that is just the expectations for Saturday. But either way, there is no major severe weather expected on Saturday, but nothing can ever be ruled out, of course. But that is what we're watching for. Now, we do see a low beginning to develop here by the time we're reaching Tuesday the 4th. And this is over Colorado at this point. And again, we have this jet stream doing a very similar, very intense rise there over the Rockies. Again, I want you guys to kind of take note here of these patterns. I know it might be kind of boring to some of you, but I want us to take note of the similarities, because that can give us an idea of how similar the conditions and the impacts eventually could be. We are in a very similar pattern most times by the time we're taking a look at only about 5 days apart. So the pattern is about the same. We have a stronger low this time around actually for Colorado. And we have a very similar jet stream here. So let's keep going with this. And we see that it's a 975 by the time it is over South Dakota and Nebraska there. Very, very bad news. Just for reference, our first low was about a 992 millibar low pressure center over Nebraska. The second one here is a 975, a just monster storm here. In general, this caused a major blizzard, by the way, for Montana, Colorado, all the way through Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, and northern Minnesota there. Definitely blizzard conditions with a low this strong. We can tell the wind is going to be very intense as well. And we can see this cold front just extending like this down below. The warm front is here. When you see that cold front and the warm front in this kind of like a very squeezed look, that's never a good sign. I'm just going to tell you that right out the gate. There's a little bit of a dry zone in here. Definitely indicative of very, very strong storms. And we see most of that precipitation happening along that cold front. Definitely a very intense look here. And by the time we're reaching Tuesday evening into Wednesday, overnight, this could be an overnight event, unfortunately. We see bad thunderstorms setting up here for areas in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, as far northward as Tennessee, Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, Indiana, Wisconsin, even Iowa there, Minnesota, a very far northern threat, and this does appear like it's going to be happening primarily overnight, actually. So we do see things developing by the late afternoon, maybe 4, 5, 6, but this continues clear into 1, 2, 3 a.m. there. Even the next morning, there's a strong line of thunderstorms here, as you can see along this cold front. They seem pretty intense all the way as far south as Texas, maybe near San Antonio, Austin area there, all the way up through Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Missouri, Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin. Very long line of thunderstorms with that cold front. And this continues eastward. As you can see, still a pretty intense line of showers and thunderstorms up and down the East Coast and Gulf Coast there. So certainly thunderstorms can't be ruled out for these areas on Thursday, April 6th. Approximately. This main threat, though, is going to be overnight Tuesday the 4th into Wednesday the 5th is mainly when I'm watching for these worst of the severe weather conditions with that storm number 2. We follow this up with some pretty active weather here in the southeast, especially here where we get kind of these stationary fronts setting up where there could be days and days of showers and thunderstorms for a lot of these areas. But really, we kind of stop seeing these major lows moving into the United States, and we really quiet down after that second storm. So here's to hoping that that is where the trend continues, and that we can see a real quieting down of these terrible, terrible conditions that we've been seeing, not only with the upcoming storm, but the one expected after that as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at that total precipitation real quickly. And as you can see, most of these are going to be moving through like this and pretty much just gliding up to the north here. That is the track of those two storms. We do see a secondary low develop with that second one that does about like this. Actually, the first one that does like that. All of this right here is from those stationary fronts that set up and the cold fronts underneath those lows that cause the severe weather and thunderstorms. We get extremely high amounts underneath here for these areas in Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, Alabama, Tennessee, up through Kentucky. We'll have to watch for flooding because that's 2 to 5, and even in the Browns, 5 to 10 inches of precipitation over the next 10 days. Certainly a very large amount, so we need to watch for potential flooding in there. Total snowfall tells the full story here. Obviously, the mountainous west expected to still continue to see very high amounts. But look at this, the northern plains and the upper Midwest here. Blizzard conditions, especially with that second storm, causing multiple feet of snowfall for a lot of these areas. Certainly going to be a very, very intense situation here. Now, I want to show you guys our temperature pattern, kind of get an update here with what's expected. We're going to go over to our temperature anomalies here. We can see what we're in at the beginning of the model run is a little bit of cooler air heading into the east, and it's actually in the 40s right now in Virginia, so it is quite cold. But as we continue this on, as you can see, we see warmth prevail actually by the time we reach the weekend. So we see something more like this taking place. Definitely a lot of warm air working up the east coast here, and we see a lot of cold air pouring into the west. So we're stuck still in this negative PNA pattern that we've been in all winter long, except for pretty much March. We do get a brief cool down there for early April, but we see things warm right back up actually in a pretty big way for midweek next week as we approach about April 5th there. We see very, very warm air in the east still. And that is where we close off here. Actually, we can get an extended look here. So let's keep going. We see the warm air prevail up the east coast. We start to lose confidence later on in this model. Certainly, there's some cold here. There's some cold there. It's hard to tell which one would happen, but in most cases, it's going to be one or the other and not both. We are taking a look at an ensemble model here. And this particular ensemble model has 20 to 30 members, and if they disagree, we could start to see some differences, obviously, and that's where I think we're getting this kind of lesser confidence look. But once we take a look at this 10-day average, it's pretty clear that there's going to be most of the time very cold conditions in the west there, and then things are warming up in the east for a majority of the pattern. This is the 3rd through the 13th there, and that's the look. And as we take a look at the beginning, this is the 29th through the 8th. It's pretty much the same thing. So we know the whole upcoming pattern features a look like this. Certainly going to be a little bit warmer in the east, a little bit cooler in the west, perhaps. Now let's go ahead and move on and take a look at that Storm Prediction Center outlook. So here we are taking a look at this, and as you can see, we have pretty intense severe weather expected, obviously, tomorrow on Friday, March 31st. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and draw on screen a little bit. We have our marginal risk here in the darker green where we expect isolated severe weather to potentially take place. This lighter green outside area is going to be your general thunderstorm risk where no severe weather is expected. You can't really rule anything out, but it's not necessarily expected. This yellow area here, taking up a huge portion of the Ohio Valley, kind of your Mississippi River area, areas like that. This is an area where we expect scattered severe weather reports to come in from these areas. The orange portion here is our enhanced risk, where we expect pretty widespread severe weather to start taking place. And then these two red areas are our moderate risk of severe weather. This is an extremely high risk, and certainly areas where we expect very widespread severe weather and tornadic activity and very major severe weather to take place potentially. So I'm going to zoom in on these areas so we can just see the different areas within the risk regions. And as you can see, this moderate risk includes Cedar Rapids. We can see Davenport there. I think that's on the Iowa side there. We see Mount Pleasant. We see Fort Madison there in Iowa. Mostly an Iowa risk here. I'm not even going to try to say that area. Dubuque, as I try to say it. Independence. So we see all of these areas. Just to name some Illinois areas as well. Sterling, Galesburg there, Macomb. We see these areas in Illinois also featuring this moderate risk of severe weather. Again, very, very high risk. This is the second to highest risk, and they very rarely issue that level 5 high risk. So we usually do not see that, maybe but once a year, if not every other year. There has been some years where we don't see it at all. So a moderate risk is the highest risk that you see semi-typically. So they're pointing out very, very high risk of very intense severe weather, particularly damaging and dangerous severe weather. As we navigate our way further south, we see there's another moderate risk here over areas in Mississippi, Tennessee, Missouri, Arkansas, and a little bit of Kentucky there. Just to point out some areas in this one, we see Walnut Ridge there in Arkansas, Jonesboro in Arkansas. They had a tornado a few years ago, actually. Newport, Forest City there. We see Pocahontas. We see Memphis, Tennessee, so the whole Memphis, Tennessee area. Hernando there in Mississippi is the only big area in Mississippi. We see also South Haven. I think that's on the Mississippi side as well. We see Brownsville, Tennessee, Dyersburg, Tennessee. We see Martin, Tennessee there. All of these areas included. We see Kennett up there in Missouri, Poplar Bluff, Sikeston. I think that's how you say that. Let's move up into Kentucky real quick, see if we can point out any areas. So Clinton there, Hickman, and Arlington in very far southwestern Kentucky are some of the areas we're watching for that moderate risk of severe weather. So definitely we want to stay on high alert during this event. These are very dangerous levels of severe weather expected. I do want to switch this over real quick, and we're using, by the way, just because I know people will ask, we're using Radar Omega today. I want to take a look at that day. I think it's day 5 here. Or is it day 6 by now? Here we go. So we have a day 6 risk as well. And these are based off of percentages. So we have 15% there in the yellow within 25 miles of a given location of severe weather happening. That translates roughly to a slight risk of severe weather. And then this orange area is a 30% chance, and that translates roughly to a enhanced risk here. And we can see that once again here, we have a 30% chance again for these areas, and that is going to be, let me try to figure out which day that's going to be just so I can get the correct information here. So that is going to be April 4th into the morning of April 5th. That is what we're looking at right here. That goes until about 8 a.m. So this includes the whole overnight, the 4th into the 5th. And we can see mostly northern Arkansas here. We see Little Rock, Hot Springs, Pine Bluff, Jonesboro again, unfortunately, Fayetteville, Fort Smith. So a lot of these northern Arkansas areas included here. And then southern Missouri here, the southern side of Springfield is included here. And then we also see areas like Sickiston, Poplar Bluff again. Also this very far western end of Kentucky again. And then western end, extreme western end there of Tennessee as well included. Memphis, you're just outside of that 30% chance. But there is some room for error here, so this could move around a little bit. It could get bigger, so that doesn't mean that you guys are out of the water yet. And even the yellow area, dangerous weather can happen in the yellow area. That includes parts of Dallas. You see Texarkana right on the edge, Greenville, Mississippi, right there in the yellow area. We also see St. Louis, Kansas City. We see Chicago in there, Des Moines, Davenport again, Indianapolis as well. We see all of these very large areas included in this slight risk area as well. So we have another huge severe weather day coming up on the 4th into the 5th. I want you guys to mark that date, especially for potential overnight severe weather as well, unfortunately. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. Please mark these dates that I've mentioned just to remind yourselves to check out the Storm Prediction Center and the National Weather Service that particular morning. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe. We will go over all of these things daily. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Also, be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Also, leave a comment down below, and I will see you guys in the next video.